12 years ago, I wrote a book about Anders Breivik, a mass shooter who killed 77 people in Norway in 2011, in my hometown. I needed to understand what would drive someone like him to become a mass killer. So I followed his trial, I studied him, and then I studied similar killers around the world. And I learned that Anders Breivik, these other mass killers, and I aren't that different. A couple of months after Breivik's massacre, I was at home in Geneva with my two kids. Axel was 4 and Ella 2. And Axel is lining up his mini airplanes, and Ella's cranky because her brother won't let her play with his airplanes. So I pick her up and I hold her in my arms to soothe her, and she has that beautiful baby scent. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have everything I could ever want. Yet inside, I feel empty, lonely. Now, how can this be? When I'm surrounded by people I love and people who love me. And just last year, I shared this story on Instagram, and that reel got 1 million views. I received hundreds of messages from people all over the world, all feeling the same way. And I knew from my research, Anders Breivik and other mass killers knew this feeling too. They also felt empty and lonely. Loneliness is our current pandemic. 1 out of 4 people in the world right now is dealing with loneliness. In the United States, it's 1 out of 2. Half the country, according to the US Surgeon General. And the solution is obvious. We just need more connection. And we're hardwired to connect. In his studies at UCLA, Bruce Austin found there are 3 levels of connection we all need. The first is intimate connection, just 1 or a handful of people you can trust and be vulnerable with. The second is social connection, a network of friends, family, and colleagues. And the third is societal connection, knowing you belong in your community. Clearly, Anders Breivik and these mass shooters I studied were lacking these. But I had a husband and a family. I had a large network. I knew where I fit in our society, yet I still felt empty. I go see doctors, therapists, coaches, healers. I read books, I start practicing yoga, and I'm meditating. And one day, I'm at home, nothing's happening, the house is quiet. I just made myself a cup of coffee, and I'm looking at the window when I start to feel this warm feeling in my body. And for the first time in years, I'm not regurgitating that to-do list in my head. And I'm not thinking of all the ways in which I failed as a mother. And I can feel my heart. And I feel grateful. And this incredible peace. And suddenly I see everything so clearly. All my own stuff. The lies I've told myself, the masks I've been wearing, the ways I've changed myself to fit in. And right then, Unni met Unni. And I don't feel lonely at all. I wish I could tell you I feel like this all the time now. I don't. Like so many people, I'm in constant motion, rushing from the airport to the taxi, to the kids' schools, to the doctor's appointments, to the this, to the that, living in survival mode like so many of you. Now, here's what we know about survival mode from neuroscientists, and you might have heard this before. As humans, we seek safety in numbers, and when we feel isolated, our brain goes danger, 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 and that triggers the release of fight or flight stress hormones. And they increase our heart rate, our blood pressure, and our blood sugar levels in case we need energy to run from an enemy or fight it. But we're only meant to sustain these chemicals for short periods of time. We were never meant to run away from danger every minute of the day, although that's what modern life often feels like. But here's the other thing that happens in survival mode that we don't talk about as much. When we're in survival mode, we become suspicious of other people. We see potential threats all around us. We get tunnel vision. We lose trust, and we try to control every outcome, which explains a lot about why our world looks the way it does right now. When you're feeling lonely and that fight or flight response is triggered, suddenly the danger you're responding to can show up looking like your coworker or boss, your spouse, child, or mother-in-law. Pretty much anyone who disagrees with your opinion. Survival mode is not a time to collaborate. It is not a time when we can open our hearts and connect with each other. Think of it this way. Imagine you're cleaning your house. Take out the vacuum cleaner, you get done with the kitchen, you move on to the living room and then to the den before you realize it's not even plugged in. That's how we are. We go through our lives not even noticing that we're not plugged in, that we're not connected with ourselves. And when we're not connected with ourselves, we can have successful jobs, good marriages, and go to lots of dinner parties and still feel lonely. So in order to connect with others and get a life that feels truly fulfilled, we have to deactivate survival mode and connect with ourselves first. And my favorite way to do that and to rediscover that sense of connection I felt alone in my house that day is with my breath. So let's take a breath together right now. I invite you to place one hand on your heart and close your eyes and inhale with me for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Now inhale one more time. I open the door to myself. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. I come a little closer to home. And you can open your eyes. Now, I stop and do this simple practice a few times every single day to feel calm, more peaceful, and more connected. Because when I'm connected with that place in me, then I can connect with others intimately, socially, and feel like I belong. And I've learned that you don't need to be married or have a best friend from kindergarten to feel less lonely. Connection can happen anywhere, even with a stranger. Many years ago, when I was working at a bank in Geneva, my boss sent me to this huge finance conference in Moscow. I didn't know anyone, and the only other woman there was Madeleine Albright. I can't hang out with her. And then one morning, I'm in the elevator when this man enters. He looks at me. Hey, Unni, how are you doing today? I barely remembered meeting him at one of the events earlier in the week. And just him recognizing me gave me such a boost. The rest of the conference, I'm on fire. I'm talking with everyone I meet, and I'm finding new investors for our fund. This is the power of relational energy, a term used by Owens, Baker, Sumter, and Cameron to describe the energy that is created in our interactions. Now, they found that this is powerful because it sparks the chain of reaction I felt that day at the conference. First, relational energy can make someone feel really good. And this shift can give them clarity, more focus, and increased concentration. And this makes people more productive. A simple moment of seeing and acknowledging someone can shift that person's day and maybe their life. Employers value these types of interactions because they increase profitability. And as humans, we need these exchanges because for one brief moment, we feel connected, whole, part of something bigger than ourselves. And it just takes a few seconds like that in an elevator, or at the checkout counter at the grocery store, or with a kind comment on Instagram. Imagine living in a world where we all have a simple daily practice of first deactivating our own survival mode and then creating relational energy. A world where we have the courage to first connect with ourselves and then connect with others. A world where loneliness is more like a common cold than a pandemic. And I can't help but wonder, what if that was the world we were living in back in 2011? Would it have changed the course of action for Anders Breivik and the 77 people he killed? I don't know. And sure, there are big societal issues we also need to address to combat loneliness, but you and me, we don't have to wait for those big changes to happen. We can start by connecting with ourselves and each other right now.